when everyone is born, they have an earth sign, and it's always directly opposite their sun sign. And it's really, really cool because like on your birthday, you don't just return to where the sun was on the day you were born, you also return to where the earth was in like the cosmos on the day that you were born. So it's very much about like how you actually live in your physical vessel. And to me, it's really what grounds you. Like it's the sign that like really truly imbues like how it is that you show up. I consider it just as important as the sun sign.
Welcome to Journey In, a show that aims to offer you new and expanding perspectives when it comes to defining your spirituality. These days, more and more of us are craving a deeper connection to something bigger than ourselves. I created this show to not only share about my personal journey, but to create a space to have conscious conversation around different spiritual modalities, health and wellness trends, and to hear from spiritual thought leaders so that we can come together and respect one another despite our spiritual beliefs and differences. At the end of the day, a spiritual journey is a homecoming to who you really are, and you get to define what that path looks like. It can be messy, hard, and confusing. We're going to journey through it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm your host, Jess Montasia, and let's journey in. Hello, welcome back to the pod. I am so excited for today's episode and for you guys to hear from my guest, Sanja Rose. Sanja is a sacred brand alchemist, cosmic guide, and creator of the True Star Systems, which is her integration of the visible sky with 13 sign astrology and human design. She has 13 years of experience in brand building for the world's biggest brands and most sacred entrepreneurs. I connected with Sanja very early on in my 13 sign journey, and I am so grateful that I did. She has such a wealth of information around this system. And we actually recorded this episode back in Taurus season before I relaunched the podcast. And at the time of this episode, when we are releasing it, at least, it is in Cancer season. So even though we're in Cancer season, you're going to hear us talk about Taurus season, Taurus energy a little bit. So you're going to get a nice dose of earth energy, some grounding, yummy earth energy in this episode. And we actually also talk about what your earth sign is in astrology. And this is something that really the earth sign placement is not talked about in Western astrology. And Sanja is one of the first astrologers that I've heard speaking on earth signs. And so I got to talk to her about that in this episode. And she shares her wisdom around what your earth sign is, what it means, how you can find it in your chart. And I just find earth signs so like what our earth sign is in our chart so fascinating ever since I've learned about it. So I'm really excited for you guys to hear Sanja's wisdom around that. And we also dive deep into Ophiuchus, which is the zodiac sign that was omitted from mainstream astrology. So she has a really beautiful way of describing Ophiuchus, and I'm really excited for you guys to hear it. So enjoy this episode with Sanja. Okay, Sanja, hi. How are you?
Hello, I'm amazing. It's Taurus season and I just feel very chill.
Oh, it's Taurus season. I know this is something that I was just sending out an email the other day to my email list, and I was like, just a reminder, we're in Taurus season until like June 19th-ish in the 13 sign system. So, how has your Taurus season been so far?
Well, I luckily enough have been traveling back to my homeland, so getting very grounded in my motherland here in Croatia. And I'm currently looking at the beautiful sea. And it has been like so relaxing. And also I went to Paris for the first time, so I got to try like beautiful, just yummy food and just look at all the scents and the sounds, and it was just very Venusian of me. But overall, I was kind of thinking about it while I was laying in the sun yesterday. I'm like, oh, what's even happening in the sky? Because I noticed that during Taurus season, I just get really in my body and in the earth and in like the kind of 3D plane. And I kind of I don't pay as much attention to what's happening in the cosmos. So I get really just grounded and embodied.
Oh, I love that. And it's so interesting too, especially with all the food, like indulging in your senses. That's so
Mhm.
Taurus. I'm
Mhm.
curious, do you have a lot of placements in your fourth house?
I have a couple placements in my fourth house. I think I have Chiron in my fourth, which is fun. Um, I think also Jupiter in my fourth. And but I do have a lot of Taurus. Like I have a Taurus Earth, Taurus Rising, Taurus Mars. I have two
Okay.
Taurus Marses if we're talking human design. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah, because I was curious because this is, I think, the second time since I've known you that you've mentioned like going home to the motherland, like where your roots are.
Yeah.
And so that's like such a fourth house theme. So I'm wondering, that's why I was
Mm.
asking. I was like, maybe do you feel like you're healing anything through your Chiron when you do that?
Oh my gosh. I was just about to say, I'm like, oh, we're just going in. The Scorpio is just diving right in. Yes, absolutely. And I was really reflecting on that yesterday because I was feeling really emotional and currently I'm pregnant, which is I'm pregnant and you can't really
Yay.
baby belly. Um, you can't really okay, lost my train of thought. It's coming back to me. Chiron. I've been emotional and I just thought, oh, I was sleep deprived, jet lagged, I'm pregnant, etc. But then I also realized that of course there's a lot of energy here, there's a lot of memories here. I'm seeing a lot of my family. We're having like a big family reunion essentially, and a lot of them have had babies and I'm about to have my baby, which is why I came back at this time because I was here less than a year ago, back in October, September of 2023, and now it's June 2024. I do prefer to come back to Europe that often. Like if it were up to me, I'd live here for like part of the year every year. And it's very interesting. And especially very interesting because I live like pretty much sober anyway when I'm not pregnant. But being able to be like, I can't have any wine, like nothing to take the edge off. It's like I'm very present to the emotions and I noticed a lot of like shame and guilt has been moving through my system. And I was just assuming that it was because, we've been having a lot of action with Chiron and Pisces over the last couple of weeks. And especially during the Scorpio full moon, our last full moon. So I just figured it was some of that integrating, but that's brilliant. I hadn't even considered that Chiron is in my fourth house and here I am. And it's also in Cancer. So it's just very, very goopy emotions over here.
Yeah, that's just like what I immediately thought of because I've just been leaning and thinking about the fourth house a lot just with my own personal placements there. And
Mm.
just hearing you talking about going back to your roots culturally, it's something that's been on my mind. And so it's just very inspiring to see you doing that. And I
Mm.
think that's so great.
Mm.
Um, okay. So you're a 13 sign astrologer.
Yeah.
Can you take us through at what point in your journey, because I know you practiced Western before,
Mm.
and at what point in your journey did you discover of being an astrologer, did you discover 13 sign astrology? And can you take us through what that experience was like for you?
Okay, so yeah, when I first became an astrologer, I did have an idea of like sidereal and Vedic. I didn't really fully understand what it meant. I just knew that there was multiple systems in the astrological field. And then I remember it so distinctly. It was during 2020. I think the moon was in Cancer. I remember it very distinctly because I was expecting the moon to be in Leo based on following the Western astrological like ephemeris. And my other astrologer friend and I, we'd both just downloaded star viewing app so we could like learn where the star was because we were looking at a star and we're like, is that Arcturus? We're like, is that Vega? And we were trying to make sure that we were looking at them correctly. So we downloaded this astronomy app. My favorite one is what is it called? Star Walk 2. And we looked up at and we just looked at the moon because it's the most easiest like celestial body to recognize here on Earth. And we're like, wait a minute, the moon is in Cancer. But like Western was, I'm like, didn't we just see that the moon was in Leo, like on someone's post or something that we posted? And it was just kind of like, whoa. And then we And this is kind of funny. Like we actually both really laugh about this because we're both professional astrologers. But then we just trace the sky and we're like, oh my gosh, like right after Cancer is Leo, and then it's Virgo, and then yeah, that is Arcturus, and then it's what? And we were just like, oh my gosh, it's all right there. Like we can actually see it. And we were in downtown Calgary, Alberta, like in a big city, million people city, like lots of light pollution, and we could still see some of the stars. And that was my first foray into, okay, I think I need to actually look at the sky and pay attention to the visible sky. And then, you know what? I actually do not even recall. Like it feels like it was like a dream, mirage, like just wave of mist that came over me when I learned about Ophiuchus. Like it's a total mystery, I feel like, how I learned about Ophiuchus. Like I actually don't remember. But it was sometime during that same time that it all just came up, like in the collective consciousness. And then I became obsessed with it. And I was really studying about Ophiuchus and 13 sign astrology and looking for software that would be more accurate than the software I was using. But for the time being, I'm like, okay, I have to integrate these two. So I started, because I was doing moon circles back then. I did like monthly full moon, new moon circles for a couple of years. And I would always do astrological readings for everybody. And I started reading both Western and sidereal because I felt like I needed to represent both. But I knew that I needed to be able to tell the story of the sky. And then eventually over a year and lots of research in my quad right, quad right is like a human design term where all of your variables or arrows point to the right, which makes you like a sponge for information and frequencies. But it's kind of strange the way that we learn because it's not like we just like focus in and like narrow in on something and learn it. It's like we just take in a lot of information, it comes to us, and then all of a sudden one day it all makes sense and we can just regurgitate it, or not regurgitate it, but like actually make it sound eloquent. I still don't know how it happens when I like teach. I'm like, that I didn't know I had that inside of me to say. So yeah, one day it all just came together and I actually just started looking more at my astronomy app and at the sky to look at what the transits were than I was actually using like charts or anything. I would still use charts for readings because I mean, you kind of have to, but yeah.
Yeah. Wow. It's interesting to me too, just because, I know that you were a pretty established astrologer, right? Like in Western mainstream, like you had been at least out there for a little bit, like you had clients,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
I've been, well, as soon as I started it, it just kind of took off. And I mean, I did this like crazy MG thing where I would do like 15-minute long readings. I just had like so many people come through and I got to do a lot of readings for them. And I was integrating it for all of my branding clients. So yeah, I'd been doing Western astrology for about a year before I had to like completely switch over, even longer, I think. And that was so confronting. It was so uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
something that I would love to talk about because you've shared this with me is just the way that like current clients you had reacted when you came out and were like, I'm aligning with this system, because that's even something that I've been like, I wasn't even in a stat, like I came out with it as I found it before I started practicing astrology openly with people. But it's been such a, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I feel like I get self-conscious because I'm like, I just know certain people they're like not vibing with it. And I've had to really just be like, okay, well, this is what feels true for me. And I know this is what I have to share. So I would just love to hear a little bit more of your experience around that.
Oh my gosh. Well, at first it's like personally, because astrology is so personal with the way you perceive yourself and understand yourself.
Yeah.
It was like my own personal identity crisis to go from because technically in the true sidereal format, like I'm right, like my sun is right where the Libra stars end and the Scorpio stars are starting. Technically on like the cutoff point on mastering the Zodiac, the true sidereal software, that's the most accurate software, which most of us use. Like I am considered a Libra sun. And that was like, whoa, what the heck? Like such a profound shift for me. to even consider that I was like closer to the Libra Scorpio cusp in my sun. And that was really immense and profound, but also really makes sense just based on what a people person I am and how much I love design and decor. And like I thought I wanted to be a politician when I was younger because I was just like, how do we create world peace? Like I've had this obsession with creating world peace, and I talk about it a lot when I do readings with people, especially readings with people with Pluto in Libra, which is my generation of Pluto. And so there was this real like personal identity crisis that I was having. And for a while, I was kind of integrating both. And then eventually, I just had to kind of, because I was like, before I was a spiritual person, I was a very like scientific person, like very skeptical, didn't believe, like I had so many, you can call them witch wounds. Like I had so much repression of things that weren't visible or validatable or provable that I had to like really see it and experience it for myself in order to not be skeptical or cynical about it. And so so there's still like this kind of, there's still a part of me that kind of feeds into that. Sorry if there's like crazy European washing machine sounds in the background.
Oh, you're
Okay.
fine. I can't hear anything.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, it's going off over there. And so one day I just really realized that I had to go with what I could see with my own eyes. And I could see with my own eyes the sky and the heavens and the stars. And so I really felt like I needed to just integrate and follow the one system that I could visibly, observably see. And it felt like the most natural way for me to connect with myself and the cosmos and be like, I can actually see right now in this, like on my birthday, I looked up at the sky and I'm like, there it is. My sun is at the very end of the Libra stars, at the very beginning of the Scorpio stars. And I'm like, you can't deny it. I can see it. Like I had to see it through an app because you can't obviously see the constellation when the sun is right there. But um, it was like this very grounding knowing for me. And when I started sharing that with people, of course, that was confronting. It was triggering. It would have them go through identity crises. I was trying to be very like kind and considerate, and sometimes even kind of like funny and like playful with the reels that I would create or what I would talk about. And but it's still, there were some people that were like, okay, like Sanja's just gone a different direction, and they just kind of stopped following me and we didn't really work together anymore. And that was painful because I was quite close to them and I felt really connected to them, but I also like really honor everyone's journeys. And if they're not ready for that or they don't want that type of information, then that's okay. But I started to feel really passionate about actually sharing like the truth of the sky and how easy it is to actually connect to the cosmos without an astrologer. You just look up, like you literally just look up. And I was looking last night at Leo and at Cancer and at Gemini, and it's just really profound, like when you have that personal connection to it. So yeah, I guess it was just one of those things. Like, I'm not technically a manifester, but it was kind of like the MG part of me, like, started to repel the people that were not down with what I was manifesting and what I was creating and what I was speaking to. And then I kind of found a new community and like a whole new group of people and audience and clients that deeply resonate with it. And it's actually funny enough, a lot of the people I read for now, they never resonated with Western, never really followed it. Were really like, I didn't really know anything about astrology. And now I know why, because it wasn't like telling me the visible truth. And so
Mhm.
it was really interesting. But yeah, there's still some people that I'm like, man, I wish I could talk to you about being a Leo, but you're over there in Virgo land and I can't do anything. We're not meant to talk right now. So it's just been it was very humbling.
Yeah, I appreciate you opening up about it because that's been my experience too, is it's kind of just like, and you and I kind of talked about this as we were just chatting and going back and forth. Both of us have gone through this, like, is this the system that I want to share? Just because it's like so confronting to people. And, I've had to really learn, and honestly, I'm still learning how to just, when people learn about it, they're always like, almost always. I've had actually the people that have done readings with me have been very like open and receptive to it. But there have been people in my life that they're just like, I just can't, I just don't believe that. And I'm just like, that's fine. Like I have to allow you to be in your own process. But I'm like, I don't get it. Like
Yeah.
how, I don't know. And I don't know if that's like maybe the Scorpio in me because, Scorpio, like I feel like we love to, we're like so about the truth and like
Like
same
the
with
truth, the truth. What are you
the
going to
truth.
do about it?
Like,
Right?
there's a bunch of, I know a bunch of Scorpios are like PIs and stuff. Like they just like investigative. Scorpio is so investigative. And for those listening, like Sanja is also, I didn't know you were like really on the cusp, but you are technically a Scorpio sun, right?
Well, technically it's like really on the cusp. Like it's
On the
not
cusp.
really
Okay.
one or the other.
So you
Because
still
it's one
have,
of the very minor stars of
yeah,
Libra, but that's like much closer to the like beginning of Scorpio.
yeah.
But my Venus is in Scorpio and my Mercury is in Scorpio. So I
You have a
still
lot of energy there
show
then,
up
for sure.
in that way.
Yeah, so and I know that's something that you and I have connected on is just like how similar our charts are and the energies that we share. And I'm
Hmm.
just like, maybe that's the Scorpio. I don't really know, but I am just kind of like,
Hmm.
um, still definitely coming into acceptance though of like, everybody has their own, everybody is meant to align and resonate with whatever. I think people doing Western astrology, I have nothing against them, usually their
Hmm.
intentions are good and I think that that's great, but I'm just like I just don't know how we can ignore the fact that 13 sign astrology is actually aligning us to the constellations, which isn't that the whole point of astrology to begin with.
Yeah, it's intense. It does boggle the mind.
Mhm.
To me, it feels just like I also like I think it's scorpionic features, but I also think like, would you have a Taurus Earth then? Because like Taurus Earth is also like the most practical. It's like this is just what like just look at it. Like you
Mhm.
don't listen to me, just look with your own eyes. Like you can see it. So that's what I think is so mind-boggling for me is it's like, what are you going to tell me that the sea isn't the sea next or that like that tree isn't a tree? It's actually like a virtual reality tree because the Roman Empire told you that that's what it was. It's like a whole thing that I could get into in terms of what like Western astrology is telling us that the sky is when it's not the visible sky. And yeah, I've had every range of emotion around it, especially being an emo MG, being an emo. I just want to like put my bangs over my eyes. Um, anyway, being super emotional, I felt like, okay, like this is just everyone's path. They're meant to learn it. Like maybe they're not ready for that level of, because I really experience it as like that level of self, that level of remembrance of self,
Mhm.
that level of self understanding. I know for me, when I realized that my son wasn't deeply in the system of Scorpio, I actually felt immense relief. I was like, oh my gosh, thank the goddess that because my whole life up until that point, with my conditioning and with my astrological conditioning as well in the Western system, felt like I always had to be transmuting and rebirthing. And
Mhm.
with people's, like people would just come up to me at parties and tell me their deepest, darkest secrets, like trauma. And as soon as I found out that my son was actually like, like mixing with Libra, I had this like freedom. And, but it was still confronting because I had to kind of like let these parts of my identity pass away, which is very comfortable for Scorpio people. I also think that's a part of why we've accepted easily or more easily, perhaps, is, you know, change and transformation, life, death is just a part of our normal. So it's not that uncomfortable to consider that level of change and rebirth within the self. Um, but I think, I've also talked to a lot of people who completely, like, once they learned about the true sky, they felt so disenfranchised and betrayed and robbed from the Western astrological point of view. They're like, wait, why are people telling us that like the sky is doing things it's not doing? And we're all like following it and doing rituals around it and like planning our times and our businesses and whatever, like everything that's being done now from like sacred circles to business marketing plans, like I do for people, but I do it with the true sky. Like it was just really disheartening. And I've had so many DMs that are like, how did you get over the fact that your spiritual teacher was lying to you, that
Mhm.
they were saying things that they never actually validated. They were saying things that they didn't actually know were real. And yeah, it's been very interesting because some people have like fully wanted to walk away from like spirituality altogether and like
Mhm.
astrology definitely, but even like been disenfranchised from the whole system
Mhm.
of like self-empowerment and self-learning because it feels like such a betrayal to have it be so popularized and so kind of blindly accepted is how I would
Mm.
summarize.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's interesting because my experience with spirituality has been similar in the past like year and a half, especially among finding the 13 sign system, because I'm just like, I feel like there's a lot of people who in the space that are practitioners, I don't think everyone does it out of malintention. I think they kind of like that's all they know and they don't know anything better and they just kind of like want to do that. But then there are also people who do know better. And it's just been a very intense process of sifting through what is of resonance for me. And I can be a little skeptical. I can be like before I wasn't as much, but ever since finding the 13 sign system, it's kind of like really opened my eyes up to things. Um in a really good way when it comes to spirituality, because similar to you, I'm just like, this just feels so resonant. It feels like I'm coming home to myself. And it's like it connects us deeper to the earth. Do you know what I mean? Like there's so much talk in the spiritual space about like connecting to nature and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, well, that is actually literally what the 13 sign system is doing because it's connecting you to where the constellations actually are, where the sun actually is,
Hmm.
where the moon actually is.
Hmm.
And so that's to
Oh
me
yeah.
where I'm just kind of like, again, you have to just accept where everyone is and it's not going to be for everyone on it and that's the journey of it. But I'm curious what you have to say about earth signs because this is something that's not
Hmm.
talked about in like when I was studying Western, that was not, I never learned what an earth sign was. So I would just, and you
Hmm.
talk about it a lot and I love that. So I would love to hear, just kind of
Hmm.
tell people like, what is an earth sign? What does that mean?
Well, it's okay. So, based on what you were saying about how the looking at the visible sky and the true constellations helps us feel more grounded on Earth, there was a place where the Earth was, right? If the sun's not moving, we're moving around the sun, but if the sun appears to be in Scorpio, the moon is not the moon. The Earth is always opposite the sun. It's kind of like a full moon constantly, right? That's always opposite the sun. And the earth would appear to would be traveling through the constellation or moving through the constellation if you're looking at it from the point of view of the sun through Taurus. And so when everyone is born, they have an earth sign and it's always directly opposite their sun sign. And it's really, really cool because like on your birthday, you don't just return to where the sun was on the day you were born. You also return to where the earth was in like the cosmos on the day that you were born. Obviously, it moves very, very slowly, like 1 degree every 72 years. So really in a human lifespan, it's not going to change that much. So it's very powerful to connect to our earth sign because it really is our physical embodiment. It's how we show up on the earth. And I think it's kind of funny because I was kind of looking at us in this video and I'm like, we kind of look alike. Like we both have like brown hair and kind of, similar kind of coloring, I guess. But I'm like, maybe it's like a Taurus thing. And I haven't studied, there's lots of astrologers that study how you physically can look like your sign. But I always notice that people with like Taurus earths, like Scorpio, Libra suns, like they just look very like they like to look good. They like aesthetics. They like skincare. They just
Oh yeah.
there's like this suppleness and also like this sultriness and sensuality that kind of emanates from them. And and that to me is very much like how you physically live in your skin, like how you embody yourself.
Mm.
And for me, like even being pregnant, like I feel so Taurus earth right now. And it feels like so liberating just to say like how nice it is to like not have to worry about my like it's a good sign that my belly's bigger Like, whereas in most of the time in our society, like your belly being big or out there is like stress or anxiety inducing for most women. And so there's like something about the curves and like the just like the voluptuousness of my body right now that like my Taurus earth is like, oh yeah, like this is how I'm meant to move and how I'm meant to look. And so it's very much about like how you actually live in your physical vessel. And to me, it's really what grounds you. Like it's the sign that like really truly imbues like how it is that you show up. I consider it just as important as the sun sign. And the reason why I even focus on it is because I read human design as well. I read it from a very astrological point of view. I never did analyst training, but I've listened to so many podcasts and so many conversations and so many YouTube videos from trained analysts, and being a quad right, I guess it just kind of, I just absorb it. And then I integrated it with the 13 sign system. And then so I read it in that way. It's just very intuitive the way that I read the system, I guess, which, you know, most people are. But the earth sign is right there. Like it's shown in the chart. And so I started to read everyone's earth sign, and it really just gives you this like point of like reality and point of connection. Like I
Mm.
always notice that for people who are Pisces, for example, most of their earth signs are in Virgo. And I'll actually notice these like very Virgo qualities, which, you know, is considered the opposite of Pisces. But like Virgos need that. I mean, Pisces need that Virgo energy, that set level of like boundaries, that level of like consistency or even organization or even cleanliness in their lives so that they can be creative and wild and emotional. Right. So it kind of gives them like this steadiness and this container. And I feel the same way about my Taurus earth, is like that level of like groundedness and stability
Mhm.
lets me be like literally go into the underworld of myself and of the collective so that I can do like really powerful, like emotional, alchemical, energetic work, but still be like in my body.
Wow. Yeah. I love that because I feel so similar. I mean, our charts are so similar. It's wild. We've
Yeah.
talked
We're
about
born
it.
like what, 8 days apart or something?
Yeah, so I'm November 26th.
Oh,
You're
6 days. I'm the 20th. Yeah.
okay. Yeah. So we just have such similar energies in our charts, which is so wild because um yeah, so it's like that exactly what you said. I've really been reflecting on this lately, and it's a message that's come through. Like Taurus energy has just been wanting to work with me like a lot of like being very more in my body, more in my senses, but also being like patient and committed and like having the patience to see things through, you know what I mean? And because I also have my midheaven in Taurus. And so I think that that's really interesting. It's just interesting when you have, you know, the multiple places.
Ooh, what house is your midhaven in? Like, do you use the system?
Yeah, it's in the ninth house.
Mm,
So yeah,
cool. Ooh,
I
okay.
know. I know. It's been a big point of, you know, just my career and everything. Because then I've also been the North Node, South Node has been a big thing too for me because my North Node is in the fourth house and my South Node is in the 10th. So it's
Mm,
been this like learning to find balance between my work life and my home life. And it's uncomfortable for me to like lean into my home life. And it's also uncomfortable. I mean, my North Node's in Ophiuchus, and but then I also have my sun in Scorpio, which I feel like helps me a bit. But it is fucking uncomfortable, especially with like my earth sign in Taurus and my South Node is in Taurus. So it's like that's my also my comfort zone.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's just been so interesting.
It's so important to have both. Like, I would interpret that, like, if I was doing a reading for you right now, and what I'm just getting messages anyway. So I'm picturing your chart. And it's so important. Like, I always think of like the South Node as being like the anchor point that grounds, that gives us the firm foundation to like move into the North Node with. It's not like we're just like, okay, F the South Node. It's like, no, no, South Node is what got me here. Like,
Mhm.
South Node is my university degree that helps me get the job that I want in my career, that then, you know, and then I eventually do something else entirely. But it was like, it's the jump off point. And it's always kind of like what you can come back to and lean back on to feel like stable, to feel comfortable as you're expanding and stretching into your North Node. And so, you know, I would say, like, really the ultimate goal for you is going to be to like establish a really profound, like, home life and like intimacy and family and circle and what it is that you do like from your own home. It might even be that you want to like work from home and do like
Mhm.
really profound transformational work from your home so you can kind of stay contained, but that your career becomes like this becomes a stabilizing point to give you that availability, to give you that like level of freedom or that level of like even financial support so you can live the way that you want to live and like support yourself and support your like immediate circle and family and nourish them through your career. And so it kind of, especially with like a midhaven in Taurus, like in the ninth, that's so cool. Whenever it's in the ninth, I always feel like your career gets to be an adventure. You get to learn and do so many things. You get to keep growing and expanding. Like it's not going to stay static. Oftentimes, Taurus midhavens can kind of feel like you're waiting a while. Like it kind of takes a while for it to like fully materialize. Like, what is it that I'm really here to do to add value? But it
Mhm.
all kind of has to do with like the body. And I immediately thought of like, well, I already know this about you, but I just sometimes get messages and I'm like, oh yeah, she told me that. But it's like the message is still coming through. Like it's like food and like nourishing the body and like the physical system of food and the earth and connecting to the earth and being able to teach people about food and the earth and how to connect to themselves and how to be in their bodies. But then also with your like Ophiuchus North Node, it's like, oh, but you're also here to teach them how to like take care of themselves and how to heal themselves from their own homes, like without you, like where you can like bring things and items and food and whatever, like into their home without actually being connected to it at all, like by just like referring them somewhere or telling them to go shop somewhere, etc. But it's like you're bringing them into this like healing expansion in their own intimate way by like making sure that you're still taking care of yourself in that way. So it
Mhm.
doesn't feel like it's like as outward, like you're meant to be like going out there and um hmm let's see, because it's like with the ninth house energy, there's still going to be a lot of socializing and like connection that you're going to want to achieve from your career and like networking and etc. But there's this energy of how can you help other people like support themselves to be contained and to be expanding and healing and learning the mysteries of life in a very grounded way while you still like have the freedom to do that for yourself. Like it doesn't impede, but your career actually like helps you dive deeper into the mystery of life and yourself and the occult and anything you want to learn about, right? That it like gives you that freedom to do so.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Thank you for that. That was so resonant. And it's crazy because, yeah, I do have a background in nutrition and I cook all the time and I cook like very healthy and it's so Taurus, like the way that I like live in my house. And everyone that comes and visits me, I've had a lot of visitors lately and I always cook really delicious meals for them and everything. And my best friend was just here and she was like, why don't you like post that you cook anymore? She's like, I feel like you need to post it. Like people love to see it. And I like posted a meal yesterday and like people responded. And I don't know. It's just like
Mhm.
hearing you say that, I was just like, wow, okay, that's something to think about. But it is again interesting. Fourth house energy is so interesting to me.
Mhm.
And is something that I'm still really dabbling with because again, it is that like not it's not that in the spotlight. It's very like foundation within yourself and then within your closest intimate relationships. So
Mhm.
I've been finding that really interesting to
Mhm.
just balance. There's just so many layers to the chart. And so that was really, really cool that people got some insight almost into like what it would be like to get a reading with you, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah. When I just start like, for lack of a better word, like channeling or the interpretations just start coming through. I think what's also really interesting, given our modern world and like social media and being an influencer and sharing your life online, is you can be at home just like making a bowl, making a meal, having some like, cool gluten-free cookies, and you can just share that and inspire people or get them to buy something or get them to change a habit through you just being at home. And so there
Mhm.
is this interesting way that given like the current system of our economy and social media, where like this fourth house has a very different like energy than it would have had, 100 years ago when
Mhm.
it's not like, you'd have to take a picture and you'd have to get an oil painting or something to take a picture of your food.
Yep.
Um, I think that's so interesting. Also, that's just so like your example there of your friend coming over and seeing your natural gifts and talents of cooking and then like giving you something to respond to of like, hey, why don't you post about this? And then you being like, oh, yes, I'm going to do that is such a perfect like MG second line situation that I'm like, that's great. That's a great example of a second line call out MG response. Yeah.
It's so true. It's so true. And yeah, the working from home is a big thing for me. It's been, especially as of lately, I've been like, I have to work
Mhm.
from home. And so it's just really interesting that that is coming up in this conversation as well, because I never really thought about it from that viewpoint. So there's just so many different layers. Okay. I would love to talk about Ophiuchus for
Mm.
because I have heard you talk about Ophiuchus before, and I'm just like, the way you word it is so beautiful.
Mm.
Um, yeah. And, you know, people are always like, oh, it's the 13th constellation. And I'm always like, well, it's actually the ninth, you know, it sits in between Scorpio and Sag. But I would love to hear, I just, I would love to just hear you speak on Ophiuchus, the sign that's missing from mainstream Western astrology.
Oh yeah. Oh, Viacas, my like, I feel like so my whole relationship to Ophiuchus is that like she, they can be whatever you need them to be. They're a shapeshifter, they are a dancer, they dance with the serpent, they dance with the snake as it's shedding its skin. They're not afraid of venom. They have like anti-venom built into their bloodstream. And so they can dance, and they also dance with the scorpion because they dance with the scorpionic stars for like half of Scorpio season is Scorpio and Ophiuchus season. And then it goes into pure Ophiuchus, but still like some Scorpio kind of influence with the stinger, especially. So there's this very interesting, like transmutative, dark healing energy. It is the master healer. And, you know, in the Greek myth, Asclepius was this master healer that was so good at healing that they actually resurrected a snake. And then when they started resurrecting things from the dead, Hades got really mad because he wanted more souls in the underworld and he didn't want people to be able to resurrect from the dead. So he got Zeus to like kill him off. And then after they killed Asclepius off, they were all very remorseful and regretful because they're like, oh no, we just killed the greatest physician. And it wasn't just like a medical physician though. Like Asclepius had like dream what was that called? Centauriums or something? There's like a name for people that would come and they would sleep and they would dream, and then you would give them herbs and different healing tinctures and different prescriptions, like psychologically and emotionally, based on the interpretations of their dreams and their subconscious mind and kind of the collective. And Ophiuchus really speaks to, given that it was hidden, that's a part of its energy, like that it was secretive. There also is like a secretive, occult, kind of mysterious, dark, feminine aura and mist and a etheric energy because it's ruled by ether. It's not ruled by one of the four like earthly elements. It's the etheric space. And so it really kind of embodies this energy of being able to heal through the grand mystery of life, through being able to go into the darkness. I've noticed, I've observed, I believe this was my like fourth year, like, no, was it my fourth year? Because I didn't really like, I was aware of it in 2020, but I wasn't really fully
Mhm.
tracking it at the time. So it's really been my third season of like sitting with Ophiuchus energy during Ophiuchus season, which starts November 29th until December 19th. And it's the most healing time of the year. Like it's the most healing time of the year. And wow, like you can just go there. You can go into your deepest, darkest depths, and there is profound transmutation and transformation that is available through what is usually, you know, considered maybe alternative medicine, energy medicine, energetics frequency, but also sound healing, music therapy, and like dance, like physical dance and embodiment and music might come up. Like you might hear a song that helps you, I don't know, integrate something from a painful past experience that you're like, oh, I'm over that now, or I get that now, or I see it in a new perspective because I heard it in a song, or I wrote a song myself, or I wrote poetry. And there's this point of Ophiuchus because it is a dancer where art and like movement arts and musical arts and vibrational arts. Like it goes from like movement to vibration with the sound and the body, where all of those kind of integrate to create like a very creative way to heal. Like it's the master healer because it uses like the highest octaves of healing. Whereas in like the Pisces Virgo polarity, I'm like Pisces Virgo, this is how I'm representing it. Typically they're like the healing polarity, the healing axis in the zodiac. But then Ophiuchus is like, whoa, there's this whole other way. There's this whole new way. And it's actually much easier and much simpler. Like sometimes you can move through generational trauma by literally just moving your body and dancing and listening to sound healings and going to a sound bath and or doing some sort of energy vibrational medicine or alpha healing or body code or emotion code or EFT or whatever it might be, access bars. Like it's very much like all of the occult alternative integrated together. And what I really noticed when reading for Ophiuchus is they're usually like just natural born healers. Like even just talking to them, you're like, I feel better. Like
Yeah.
I feel better. And their wisdom is so immense. And what I think is really interesting is it's like a mystery to them why they're even like that. Like it's usually later in life that they even realize that they're like healers or have this natural inclination and they kind of go on their spiritual path. Like all of us kind of feel like we're wandering through the dark in our spiritual path at some point. But like Ophiuchus placements are like, what's really happening here? Because it really truly feels like this daunting mystery before them. And then and like when they reflect back, they're like, oh, it all makes sense now. But, you know, sometimes synchronicities can seem like wildly unrelated for them. And yeah, it's so fascinating. I could just talk about it endlessly. So let me know what else you'd like me to say based on that.
Oh my gosh, I'm like mesmerized because yeah, this is why I wanted to ask you because you just talk about it so beautifully. I'm curious, one interpretation that I've heard around it is that an aspect of it is that it kind of is about marrying the unionization of our like inner masculine and feminine. And I'm like curious if you've heard that and what your thoughts are around it, because it's also interesting because it sits in between a feminine and a masculine sign, like, you know, Scorpio being feminine and Sagittarius being masculine. And so I thought that was just so interesting. And I'd be curious what your thoughts are on that.
That's really cool. I've never heard that before, but immediately I thought of Scorpio and Sag and the integration point between the two, because
Yeah.
it really does kind of embody like, you know, I would say almost the polarity of Ophiuchus isn't like the opposite of Taurus, but it's, which is really cool when you think about like, you know, Ophiuchus, a lot of Ophiuchus sons have Taurus earths in their embodiment. But I also think of the polarity being between the Scorpio and Sagittarius being like, whoa, you're really here to embody like that level of depth, like that level of truth telling and immensity that is Scorpio, but also the level of like passion and fire and excitement and like creativity that is Sag. And then those two come together to create like something unique, which is Ophiuchus. But I also think of, because typically like when you look at astro maps, like it's pictured as a man dancing with a
Mhm.
serpent, like a la how Britney Spears, who is an Ophiuchus, by the way, she's an Ophiuchus Scorpio. So is Billie Eilish, so is Taylor Swift. I think it's a whole Hollywood conspiracy, honestly, that they're all Ophiuchuses, but I'm just like, okay, that's a whole other conversation. I just think it's really interesting that like those three women have like kind of led music in a very different way than other people have. And I think they're all fifth lines too. I don't know about Billie Eilish, but anyway, but it's like a man holding a serpent, and the serpent is very typically like feminine, and especially because it sheds its skin, and like women, like we shed our blood every month, and it's just like it's very interesting, like that integration and that level of like safety and permission to be both, to be like a man that's moving with something that's so formless and like you know, undulating and curvy as a snake and so primordial and so healing and so misunderstood and very you know, demonized in many ways. And I just think it's very interesting. Like I think the whole of Ophiuchus kind of gives us permission to find power in the most unlikely places, like in the most profound of integrations. And I actually see it as a lot more, well, especially I have to quote Cassidy here. So my beautiful soul sister, Cassidy Lee Bell, we teach together inside of my cosmic arts training. And we really like became astrologers around the same time together. And we found out about Ophiuchus. We literally hadn't talked for a year and a half. And then we had one phone conversation. I'm like, hey, so like the Romans really kind of fucked us over and there's Ophiuchus, right? And she's like, yeah, that's what I've noticed. And we were like, okay, great. We're on the same page. We literally both like we'd been following Western astrology before that. And then we just converged at the same time around it. And she always says that Ophiuchus really represents the dark feminine, because something that I've been wanting to mention this whole time is there is the galactic center, the black hole, right at the end of Ophiuchus before Sagittarius starts. And that's what's really like, I would say the planetary, like there doesn't have a planetary influence, Ophiuchus. It's ruled by a black hole, which is where everything goes to die and be reborn. And a
Mm.
black hole like takes no prisoners. It's like everything goes in, light included. And everything comes back out in a formless purity that can be created into anything, but it doesn't look anything like it looked like before. So it is like true transformation, like expression. And so I think what's really interesting is like Cassidy always equates that to the cervix and to the power portal of life, which like obviously as like a pregnant woman, I'm very connected to right now. And so there is definitely for me like a very feminine quality to Ophiuchus, like, but it's often considered like the dark feminine, the hidden feminine, like the deepest power source. But I think in order to have like the feminine in its power, you need to have like strong masculine support and container to even like allow for that level of birthing,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, I just keep thinking of my partner because he's an Ophiuchus son. And
Mm-hmm.
he's so divinely masculine, and
Mm-hmm.
he's so grounded, and I feel like that but he's so emotionally present. Like he is like not afraid to cry, he's not afraid to talk, you know what I mean? Like, and he has that very natural healing. Like people in his life just come to him, because he's always there to like help, and that's just his nature. But I just keep thinking about that as well, because it's like, yeah, I don't think that Ophiuchus energy would be there if he didn't have that like grounded, firm, masculine foundation. And when we talk about that, we talk about it in a very
Mm-hmm.
healthy way, like not macho, but anyways, that's a
Mm-hmm.
whole that's a whole nother conversation. But
Mm-hmm.
it's just really interesting. And too, what you said about, Ophiuchus being more of like healing creatively, because there's a few different people that I know that are Ophiuchuses, and they are all healers in their own way, and they definitely do it very artistically. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just think that's so interesting, because Ophiuchus energy in general for me, I'm still really learning it and understanding it. And,
Mm-hmm.
you
I think
know,
we all are. It's still, it's new ancient stuff. It's new
yeah.
ancient information. It's always been here, but we haven't really talked about it before. So I feel
Yeah.
like we're all tuning into what it really means still.
And
Mm-hmm.
then I mean, with the elements of it. So it's like between air and ether, right? It's like, what is the difference? Like ether is more dense. Have you ever thought about that? Because I'm just kind of like, they're
I
both,
actually like, mm, I think of ether as like space vacuum, but also the space where like, ether is present everywhere, like in outer space and here. And it's kind of what like transmits cosmic energy. It's like what moves faster than the speed of light is like goes through ether, right? Whereas in air, you still have to have like wind and there's like a area of limitation. Whereas in ether is like, I don't know, I think of like neutrinos, even though like I don't know that neutrinos are composed of ether. I think that there's actually like a scientific explanation of this, like,
mm,
but it kind of feels like to me it's more so like the energetic field, and it's also the field of possibility because it is really dark matter. It's like space. It's literally just space, and that feels so like fertile and creative, but not in that same like fertile creative way that like a womb is. It's not like wet.
Mm.
and moist and like fertile, like soil, like rich soil. It's like, whoa, like a star could burst out of here, like a planet could come alive. And then like it's really, really profound space. And I also think of that as like, Ophiuchus can just hold really profound space. And my Mercury is like in Scorpio and Ophiuchus, which is why um I I find that I'm able to do what I do, like to speak to people at the depth of which I speak to them, because I, kind of create this space.
Mm-hmm.
And I go into my interpretations of the cosmos that kind of give them the freedom to expand, grow, learn, understand themselves. It's really interesting. It's endlessly fascinating, honestly. And I would really say like the best way, like right now, like I'm sitting here in Taurus season, I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot about the cosmos. Like I forgot I was an astrologer for 2 weeks because I've just been like in my body, like focused on what am I going to eat? How am I going to move my body? How's my body feeling? When am I going to sleep? What do I want to wear? Like just very on
Wow.
earth. Yeah.
That's so interesting. That resonates for me too, because I have also been very in my like earthly experience lately. And I had to literally, like, when I went to go send an email out to my email list, I was like, okay, I need to like check back in here. Like, where even are we? I know we're in Taurus season, but
Yeah.
I was like, same with you. I was like, I forgot that I even do astrology. Like,
Yeah.
so that's really, yeah, I'm right there with you. And it does make sense.
Yeah. It's really funny. It's really funny how like they really influence us in these very subtle, profound ways. Like the dreams I was having during Pisces season and how creative and poetic I felt. I'm a poet. I would say I'm a poet first and foremost, and then everything else is just like, different tools and modalities. But I
Mhm.
hadn't been writing in a while, and then it was Pisces season. I'm like, this is it, it's time. But it's so interesting. Like I find it very interesting to like sit with what actual physical Ophiuchus season feels like.
Mhm.
And I mean, right now it's fascinating because I think the Earth might be in Ophiuchus. I have to go check.
Mhm.
Because it is Taurus season. So let's just see. It might be in Scorpio.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of interesting that like I always think of it like when the Earth is in that sign. Yeah, the Earth is like just entering Ophiuchus actually as we speak.
Wow.
Hmm. And so that to me feels like to kind of bring it back to the very beginning of the conversation. It's like through literally just physically being present here in my body, where I am in my homelands with my family, like about to have a baby, kind of processing lots of emotions around that. I really wasn't very emotional about anything until really the Scorpio full moon. Then I was like, whoa, I've got so many things about having a child. Okay, like let's process all of them. And with Ophiuchus being where the earth is, it's like I feel like I'm doing that, but I'm really doing it through my body. Like I'm not feeling drawn at all to be like, let's go do energy work.
Mm.
Okay, where is this in my body? What is this saying to me? I even got, it's so strange. I've been like, I've been like since I was a kid. I mean, I used to live here. I was born in Bosnia and lived in Croatia. And 33 years of my life, I've never seen jellyfish in our seas. And then the first time I went for a swim, I literally got stung by a jellyfish. You can't really see it, but it's like
Oh
this
yeah.
like
Mhm.
crazy little red mark on my wrist. And it hurt like a mofo. I was like, what the hell? And then I was like, oh, it kind of hurts good. I'm like, this kind of feels good because it felt like it was doing something for me. And I'm like, I'm gonna go look up what this means, like symbolically. And and I even like just started doing energy work on the wound. And it was a lot about, especially being on my left hand, on my left like side, was just like a lot around receiving and feeling okay about my own path, like my own feminine path and how I want to birth and what I
Mm.
want to do, because everyone has different opinions and stories, and they want an epidural and a hospital birth and they want a home birth and they want a free birth, and everyone's got their own point of view. And I was just like, I am free to do what I need to do. And the jellyfish represents like being, free and kind of flexible and flowy and transparent as well, being like, this is me, this is what I want, but also being able to kind of shift with the tides. And so it's very interesting, like embodiment processing that's happening right now. Like given that Ophiuchus is happening. So definitely pay attention to if you are like experiencing any sort of like insect bites, bee stings, jellyfish stings, like nettle stings, like stings or venom or snakes or anything like that, how that's actually how there's always like nectar and medicine in that, in the venom, essentially, that comes up in our lives.
Wow, I love that. That was so embodied and so much wisdom that you're offering. I feel like
Mm,
we're gonna have to have another conversation because we're
no.
coming up on time, but this has
Yes.
been so amazing. So, where are you at now with your astrology business? Because I know it's been growing and I want people to know how they can find you and work with you.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. So I am still doing readings up until baby is born. So I'm due at the beginning of September. So I think I'm going to keep my books open until mid-August. So yeah, if people want to book in for one-on-one readings with me, that's always available. It's on my website, sanjarose.com. And I also have a cosmic arts training that I will be running until the end of the year. And then after that, it won't be live anymore. So you won't be able to, get feedback with me or interact with people live and present while it's being recorded. But then afterwards, it's going to be a do-it-yourself program. So it's really for astrologers and other cosmic readers who want to deepen into the 13 signs, learn about how to read for each of the astrological signs, where they are in the human design system, as I've traced it to the human design system, and that's a whole other conversation. But it's very helpful. And it's also just very helpful for anyone that wants to embody more of this
Mm-hmm.
teaching and more of this understanding for themselves as a leader, even if they don't use it to like read for anybody, but that is the intention, that you can expand your own cosmic business through cosmic arts training. And I really do think of it as an art. Like at this point, I'm just like, we're all cosmic artists and we all get to look up. And as more like true astrologers kind of start speaking and creating, I follow a bunch of them on my True Star Systems page. If you're looking, if you're like, I know a lot of people are like, I don't know what to do on Instagram. Everyone's telling me the moon's somewhere it's not, and I'm confused. And so I follow a bunch of true astrologers on my True Star Systems page. If you need just like places to go to see where the moon is and what the full moons are doing and what season it is and what conjunctions are actually occurring, that's a great place to go. And I'm just really like encouraging other people to be like, share, tell me your perspective. What are you seeing? Like, what's your point of view? And that's kind of what I care about now, is like kind of creating more teachers, because once I have the baby, like I'm not really going to be doing a lot of one-on-one sessions for a while. Like I feel like it might be a year or more,
Mm-hmm.
or that I might just open up like days every couple months for people to come in. So it's like teaching other astrologers and having them proliferate and go and share this work in their own unique way is what I'm really passionate about right now.
I love that because I'm all about like the community over competition as well. And I think every astrologer has their own unique way of working with astrology. And that's what I always tell people too, is I'm like, you can like get a reading from me and then you can go get a reading from someone else. And like you can get like totally different insights
Mm-hmm.
based on how that person works with the system and what they're really called to do with it. And so I think that that's a really beautiful thing that you're cultivating there. So,
Mm.
yay. Well, thank you so much, Sanja. I loved this conversation with you. I always do when we talk 13 sign, we go so deep. So, hopefully we'll do it again soon.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, this feels like something we need to have like a touch in every, like, I don't know, maybe we'll do it every fixed sign season or something. We can do it again in Leo season or
Oh my gosh, I would love that. And I think that would be
right, like a little quarterly fixed sign check-in. That's
yes.
so fun. This was really, really great. And I just have to say, like, I just said I love hearing from and learning from different astrologers. And I've heard and learned so much from you. Watching you read Lily's chart on your podcast was epic. And I'm like, oh, I'd never heard Saturn described in that way, or the fourth house, or it's like we have so much to learn from each other. And I have so many Sag placements, as do you. And I'm like, we're here to just learn from each other. And it's been such a pleasure. And that thing that you just unlocked for me with my Chiron in the fourth, like as I'm here, was it like snapped together, like what's really been happening for me. So thank you for that insight as well, and your wisdom. And the space you hold. It's been
Oh my
awesome.
gosh, thank you. You're so welcome. I'm so glad. Yeah, my curiosity was just like going there. So felt like it was definitely intuitively guided. Um,
Mhm.
okay, well, thank you so much, Sanja, and until next time.